Good afternoon, Jim. How are you? I guess Jim's just connecting here. Okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. John. How are you?
Hi, Steve, how are you? Jim, how you doing?
Thank you.
You're probably connected right now. Jim Bajik. Are you on video, Jim? Yes, you are. I'm sorry. You still down in Georgia, Steve?
No, sir. I'm at an undisclosed location in central New Jersey.
Nice.
Yes, sir. Bruce, I was with, I saw your brother today. Mark, is it?
Oh yeah, where'd you see him?
Well, it was an unusual. Well, we attended a similar wake this afternoon.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A mutual friend, actually a mutual, well, it was a father of mutual friends of ours.
My condolences.
Yeah, he said, he told me to tell you to behave. I don't know what that meant.
I'm always on my best behavior.
I told him
He's
that.
the one. He forgets that he's the one that's always got to look out.
Yeah. Any word on the person in the water?
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, terrible.
Very sad.
See, is Alan? Hey, Alan's here.
Hello, Bruce.
Oh, my deputy harbor master. Good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Mr.
I'm
Owen?
well.
Are you gonna maybe go put my shirt on? Be official?
I mean, as an official.
The bling, got the bling going and everything.
Hi, Alan. Do we have a quorum, Alan?
We don't yet. 1, 2, 3. We need 5. Mike is here. 4. Laurie Jones, we'd require.
Yeah, she said she's attending. I saw her email.
Yep.
Chris is here.
She did, so we'll just have to, we'll hang on for Laurie, but as of now, we don't have a quorum.
Okay.
Jeff is in Italy, in Rome. I thought he was going to Rome, New York, but he actually went to Rome, Italy.
Good for him.
And Matt Gifford is fishing in Chappaquiddick. It didn't have connectivity. So here we are. Bruce, did you hear anything more about our adventure yesterday, our friend in the water?
I have not.
Is it in the hands of the Detective Bureau, Bruce?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes, the Detective Bureau has the investigation. There was an autopsy conducted this morning at 9 o'clock, so they'll have some preliminary information, I would imagine, today or tomorrow.
It's frightening to think that's happening in our area here. Well, it's frightening happening anywhere, but especially in our little community here.
Absolutely.
Is there a foul place expected here?
It doesn't look that way, no.
We don't know.
It doesn't look that way, though.
Welcome, Laurie.
Hi, I was just closing the shade so I could see you. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good.
So are we?
We have a quorum,
We have a
so we'll call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. I'll do the roll call. Matt Gifford is not here. Laurie Jones here. Alan Kibbe here.
Here.
Jeff Mangles is not here. Chris McDonald.
Present.
Victor Matthews.
Present.
And Dr. Pinto.
I'm present.
We have 5 commissioners that is a quorum, so we have a meeting. Amelia, do we have anybody for public comment?
We have one attendee, so if you'd like to speak and make public comment, you can use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of the screen. No, it does not look like we have any public comment tonight.
Thanks, Amelia. Very well, let's go on with the application review committee with Dr. Pinto.
Alan,
Sorry, Laurie.
We're gonna do
we need to
motion.
approve the minutes
we'll do a little,
I forgot the pledge
yes.
and the minutes.
and the minutes. I'm sorry, I'm reading too fast. I'm getting very excited. I'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
of the
United
United
States
States of
of
America,
America. And
and to the republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all. Sorry, guys. Approval of the minutes from May 24th and June 20th. Should we do May 24th first? Are there any comments, corrections for Lori?
Well, they were made previously. I made suggested comments and they've been incorporated.
And they've been incorporated. Are there any further comments or changes? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept minutes.
Second?
Seconded.
Ricks, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So members, minutes of May 24th are approved. June 20th. That was our special meeting. It was really a presentation by the Planning and Zoning Commission on the Planning and Zoning Department on the proposed zoning change for the city of Norwalk. Any comments on those minutes? Is there a motion? Anybody have a motion or a comment?
I'll make a motion.
Second, please. Second, the motion to accept the minutes.
I second it.
Thanks, Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So meeting minutes of June 20th have been approved. So thank you very much for that. Now that I can read in the dark here, Dr. Pinto, application review.
Yes, we have two, actually two applications to review. The first one is for 300 Wilson Avenue, and Mr. Bajek is the agent for the project. The application involves proposes to increase the stone riprap on 2 segments of an existing riprap containing shoreline, and measures have been made necessary for control of erosion and growth of Phragmites. So this is a sort of a DEP COP application. And just, I guess, as I understand it, Jim, if you want to take me through it or take the commission through this, this is just going to embellish what is already there as far as the riprap along the coastline. Where's Jim? Where's Mr. Bajek?
Unmute, John. Jim. Jim, you're muted. Unmute, Jim. Jim, you're muted.
We can't hear you, Jim.
How's that?
There you go.
That's better. There you go.
Okay. We're not proposing any additional riprap. This is to authorize 38 cubic yards of riprap, stone riprap that was placed back in 2012.
Wow.
And two areas. So, you know, it's an old violation that we're trying to clean up. And but the DEEP asked us to do removal of the Phragmites that's also mixed the ends along the shoreline. And so DEEP asked us to remove the
Jim, you're breaking up.
Phragmites, removing the stalks.
You're coming in and out, Jim.
I'm on your end.
I'm sorry?
I'm hearing the same thing on your end. You're breaking up as well.
All right.
Connection.
So what you plan to do is the riprap is currently there. You tend to remove the Phragmites that's been outcropping in that particular area.
Yeah, and we're going to do that twice a year for 5 years.
Okay. All right. That was part of the original
Diminish and
right. Well, I don't know if any commissioners have any comment. Do you want this to show the area of interest, Jim? Do you have anything to present? We can have Amelia share the screen with you.
Yep, Jim, you should be able to share the screen if you have anything. I also have the PDFs up already on my computer, Jim, if you want me to share, if that's easier.
I was going to say I have a copy here too, Amelia. If you want, I could.
Yeah, if that's okay with you, Jim. Yeah, either John or I can pull it up.
All right. Well, I have it here. Let me see if I could share my screen.
Yep. Yeah, you should have permission to do that.
Okay. Let me see here. Put that here. See if that works here. Let's see. Do we see that?
Yep, looks good.
All right. Jim, could you see this presentation here? Is this one you want or could use?
yes,
All right. So this is the area here that requires that's going to be you're not putting in riprap. The riprap is already there, but the area of Phragmites is down in the section over here.
go to sheets 5 and 6.
Which one you want? Which section do you want, Jim?
Sheets 5 and 6.
Well, tell me when. Can you see this?
Okay, the hash area
Which one? Where right in here?
around 2012.
Well, this is part of the application. Oh, it says summer 2012 in here.
This is right here is where some riprap was placed in this area here.
Well, we can't see you pointing, Jim. If you're pointing to the section in here, because it's on my screen.
Right there.
Wait, I'm moving a
You
cursor
see it? To the right.
in this area here.
No, further to the
This area here. Oh, Spartina,
right,
right in here.
But it says riprap added 2012 above your.
right. Riprap added in 2012.
It says edge of vegetation summer.
Keep
Riprap.
going up and to the right, closer to the building. Riprap added.
Oh, here, right in here. Oh, I see, right here. Yeah, this area right here. So this is the area of concern, right, Jim?
That's one area. And on next sheet, go to the next sheet.
This one here? This one here then?
Right, just to the right of the concrete remains, section B.
Let's see, where you're seeing section B.
Look at section,
Well, this is, this here, well, it says B is here,
yep, right where those stones are shown.
That's
Right. right in here then. So,
Riprap added in 2012.
all right. So the bottom line here is that you're planning to remove the the Phragmites that's in that has grown in this particular area and maintain that for a period of every 5 years?
Yes, the Phragmites is. Go to sheet.
Well, I can see you have here, you have Phragmites, you have the Spartina.
Well, so John, I'll read what his application says since he's not coming through so well. So for the description of work, the regulated work consists of the addition of stone riprap in 2 sections of an existing riprap shoreline. This
Right.
work was conducted in 2012 and consisted of placing 38 cubic yards of stone in an 80-foot section and another in a 50-foot section. So is this a retroactive application to have something approved that was done 11 years ago?
It's addition. And go to sheet 4 for the Phragmites.
Let's see where I'm seeing, sheet 4, let's see, that's
Sheet
sheet,
4.
okay, that's sheet 5, and this is sheet 4 here. Sheet 4 here?
See the Phragmites?
Yeah, Ellen, yes, this is, right. This is sheet
Those are
4,
frag. See the Phragmites,
that's down in here. No,
right,
The very tiny dots. So-
right there.
yeah, up in here, yes, I got him, right here. So this is all gonna be removed.
All that twice on 6.
Yeah, so, no, but I'm trying to get at, you're not adding additional riprap there, as I understand, is that correct? That no additional riprap is going there,
That's correct.
but riprap was added in that area a while back, but now what you want to do is then maintain and remove the Phragmites, as far as according to DEP wants you to do. All right,
Exactly.
all right, so, I mean, other than that, I don't know, does any of the commissioners have any comment or concerns with this project? I mean, certainly we support, shoreline restoration and, protecting the shoreline, and that certainly goes along with that. And I have no further comment of the application certainly moving forward, as it would be consistent with harbor management plan.
John?
Yes,
Jeff?
Jeff.
John, can I make a comment or ask a question?
Yes, go on.
Jim, was this subject of a notice of violation from DEP?
Yes. Yes, it was.
And have you entered into a consent order with DEP?
No consent
So there's no monetary penalty that's.
order
been
required.
Pardon me?
No consent order was required, just a submittal of a COP
I think there's a couple of things.
application.
The harbor management plan has a policy
Oh, yes,
to not support after the
after
fact
the fact.
approvals for unpermitted structures or unpermitted work that occurs after the approval of the harbor management plan, unless there are compelling reasons to do so. So I don't think that the commission would say this is consistent with the plan, but would have no objection if you think that there is
That's right.
a compelling reason to let it go forward. And
We
then-
we didn't see any violation though. I mean, we were not privy to that, were we?
Well, but this is it's unpermitted structures, so it is a violation. So if the commission was to have no objection, there would have to be a reason for having that no objection. And then also to make clear that this isn't meant to be a precedent for other after the fact permits or approvals. I'm not suggesting that you're not have an objection to it, but what is the compelling reason to have no objection to this? Is it the DEP is determined that the work did not? Jim, did DEP determine that if you had applied for the approval of the riprap, they would have permitted it in the first place?
Yes,
I think that's the reason then that this work would have been permitted. We don't see any adverse impacts on the environment or navigation. And provided that there is monitoring of the proposed vegetation improvements, the commission would have no objection to
Right,
it.
but that was part
But
of,
not,
I'm sorry, Jim, that was part of your previous application, Jim? If I recall, that was to continue the remediation of that area? Was that? Hi, Steve?
they just need to remove the phragmites. And so we said, sure, why not? You know, we're all for improving the environment.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So since this is a COP, it won't appear before the Shellfish Commission. And Jim, I was just wondering if you could expand on the methodology that is planned to remove the frag.
Just
I didn't copy that.
hand
sir.
cutting and then removal.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No chemicals or herbicide being used, correct?
That,
I'm sorry?
we also know that typically hand cutting and removal isn't a permanent fix.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
The only real successful way to do it is to reduce the tidal elevation or the elevation.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be some sort of a monitoring, a monitoring of this and a report regarding the success of it.
Well,
all they've asked us to do is cut their
that is what the,
stalks and remove.
that's what the DEP is recommending that you do.
That's correct.
And a steady maintenance basis of every 5 years to go through there and cut that back.
Every 6 months for 5 years.
What, I'm sorry, Chris?
Every 6 months for 5 years. So 10
I see, 6 months.
10 times over 5 years,
I see, okay.
right? Biannual is twice a year, not every other year, right?
Right, late spring and then
And, okay, is this gonna be, well, I know, there's is there a company that's hired to do this? As far as the procedure, is there people that exactly know what they're doing as far as the removal of that material?
I think the site owner is going to have it done. They have, they have their own workers.
Uh-huh.
Who is the owner of this property? Is it the Ice House Management? Or is it's not?
Real estate partners.
Yeah, I think it's the same one that we reviewed, at 310. It's an LLC, Wilson Avenue LLC.
It's Spinnaker Real Estate.
But yeah,
Spinnaker, okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was Grasso, because Grasso's next door. Crystal LLC.
all right, so Jeff, let's say, so this is, as I said, I have no problem with this, moving forward as proposed. But, as far as supporting it, it's not being consistent with the plan based on the fact that I didn't realize that there was a previous violation on this application.
Page 3 of the application, notice of violation.
Was the notice of violation from 2012?
Yes,
Okay.
that was the original.
Well, the original work was 2012, Jim.
Well, the violation is a 2012 date on it. I was wondering.
Yes,
Well, as far under the circumstance, would anybody have any other comments that you wanted to make with regard to this application? If not, maybe we can move forward with this.
Chris, could you just sort of summarize the application for us again?
Yeah,
So they received a violation in 2012 for this riprap. I don't know if it's the cubic yards at 50 linear feet and 80 linear feet. The remediation riprap was added to help control erosion. Let me see if cut to the deep staff has determined that the additional riprap is acceptable to remain, provided that the property owner agrees to cut down and remove 2 areas of Phragmite on a biannual basis for the next 5 years.
that's right.
The owner applicant has agreed to remove the Phragmite according to that schedule. The notice of violation, it has a 2012 notice, NOV 2012-3483. So that's why I reckoned it was 2012, and that's when the work was done. What was the date of the work like?
So the notice of violation, Jim, was issued right after the work was completed?
That's correct. Deep happened to be doing a site visit. And they noticed it.
Right.
Why was it close to 10 years then before?
This was an ongoing thing and we thought it was
They thought-
resolved and then the owner thought things were resolved. Not do anything until very recently. And they reopened the notice of violation.
So that was then, okay, so the notice of violation was standing, but then all of a sudden it reappeared. I just, well, it took over 11 years. If not,
Yes.
to reconcile this difference here. I just find it a little, not unusual, but it's kind of,
It wasn't high on their list.
That was about when that was about when the ice in that what was that place called? Not Sprague Electric. Whatever, the old factory was turned into the ice house. That was right. I moved in literally across the marsh from that when this work was done in 2012, right before Hurricane Sandy. So that was when they were, turning that whole area from the factory into the ice house and created that big parking area and everything else. So this work was
Nash.
part of the development of all that.
that's right.
That was the Nash property?
Nash,
Nash
that's what I'm
Engineering.
trying to think of.
That's
Nash, yeah.
is there, yes. Well, we need a motion to agree upon here. As far as the work is concerned, I certainly would like to see the project move forward according to DEP specification. And, but again, as far as supporting in the application, the COP, I guess we have our previous requirements of not supporting after the fact applications.
Well, we can, okay, so can we make a motion? So should we make a motion that we have no objection to it moving forward, but that we don't support retroactive?
Well, that's, yeah, exactly, of that nature. That's something we can sort of wordsmith around that.
Yeah,
And,
John, I think the compelling reason is that the DEEP would have approved this work with the riprap if it had been
Done properly.
applied for.
Right.
And the DEEP is determined has not created an adverse impact on environmental quality, and that the proposed project will actually is intended to enhance the environmental quality here. So
That's-
those would be the compelling reasons to have no objection to it going forward.
okay, yeah, I mean, because we have policies in the plan that definitely supports if that application was put through in the proper channel.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, can we move forward with that motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, and any further discussion on that? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll be, Alan, I can't see everyone online here.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. We have,
And what we're really voting on is this is our recommendation to the Harbor Management Commission as a whole for this as the application review committee. We're
Yes.
agreeing on our recommendation to the commission.
Right. All right, we have everyone's, I don't know if we have a unanimous on this or anyone abstain.
Any abstentions or any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We have 4 or 5, we have 5 commissioners.
We have 5.
Okay. All right, let's move forward here again. So again, thank you very much, Jim. All right, for clarifying that. All right, is Jim still on?
Yes.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Jim, for clarifying that, and we'll get that letter out to,
Messed up.
I'm sorry?
Sorry about the audio.
No, it's all right. We managed. All right, we'll move forward. Thank you very much, Jim. The next application is a continuation of last month's review of the Eversource's pre-application for their project of the removal of the transmission lines. And the pre-application proposal was tabled again from last month's meeting to allow a review of by an independent contractor skilled in horizontal directional drilling. And as you well know, that the DEP's application, I'm sorry, the Eversource's application involves the removal of the overhead transmission lines on the railroad going underneath, removal from the police station area underneath Elizabeth Street, and then across Water Street, and then tunneling, do a horizontal tunneling underneath the harbor, and coming up again on Vets Park area, and then recontinuing along 4 Point Street, and then re-meeting on the high tension wires along I guess 4 Point Street on where the railroad meets up again. So we had I'd probably say a leading expert, and how we got in touch with this individual was sort of through a application that was submitted by Greenwich. And we got to know the individual who was helping Greenwich out with their work of dealing with Eversource and placement of transmission lines in their area. And this person had agreed, and the guy's, my name is Mitch Melman. I have his credentials. He's very well credentialed for what he does. Over 50 years of experience doing horizontal directional drilling under the Hudson River, Mississippi River, and for a number of other municipalities. But in any event, we asked him to review the application, and he submitted back in, let me see if I can get this out here. And let me get this out here. Let me cross this, stop sharing. And see if I can share this again here. All right, this was, oops, no. Can you see this? The letter? Let me see, let me stop share here. I need another, wait, let me get see this. Oh boy, share screen.
John, we could see that.
Oh, you can see the letter?
Yeah, we could, not right now, but a second ago, we could.
Oh, okay. Wait, let me just, is that here's computer screen? That's your addenda. Okay. Share. Okay. You can see this, Lori? No. That's not one here. Hold on. Let's see. Can you see the letter? I have the letter up here. This email. Alan? Is that visible?
I see a Zoom webinar conference. I just see like an agenda page.
Oh, okay, so Jesus, why hold on, let me see, let's stop sharing again. God. Share screen.
Hey, John, it might be in the wrong window.
Yeah, let's see, try.
There you go.
Yeah, we got it.
Well,
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, is that it? See this now? Okay. Yeah, well, so this is a letter that we received. It's from Mr. Millman. It was addressed to me. Let's see, let me get this out here. And he put together some very interesting points that I think we need to consider. He says, at this time, I submit the following. Now, he already submitted some comments back 2018, where he had met with members of the city, the DEP, met with members of the Harbor Commission back then, and we discussed this plan. And he basically has iterated and reiterated the comments that he had back in 2018, but we wanted him to look at the proposal based on the fact that the Siting Council and the and Eversource and the DOT have certainly signed off on the current site in which the pipe tension wires are going to be placed. So he says, at this time, I submit the following summary comments for your consideration during the deep pre-application phase of the Eversource project. Some of these were included in my 2018 report. And so if you indulge me, because I'd like this to be read into the record. During the course of my 50 years in underground electrical utility construction business, working for 75 power concerns in 26 states, I cannot recall seeing a buried electric line that was routed beneath any existing public facility, either on land or underwater. Surely in streets, lines crisscross existing utilities and go under stormwater culverts. But the current proposal is akin to routing a new feeder beneath the existing basement of someone's home. So as I said, this was also surprising to us because we've already back when we first started to talk to Eversource, that we also, and we've talked to other people who had seen similar projects done, that no one has seen a power line going underneath a public facility such as we're having right now. So this is going to be a first probably in the country, as well as a first for Norwalk. The accuracy of the subterranean location of the casings, that is the pipes to be placed within the final reamed out bores, once they are placed, cannot be considered 100% accurate. So I guess there's also that problem of having an as-built survey. Data used to locate the borehole can be impacted as they are transmitted. We have on several occasions needed to locate a cable that had been installed by directional drilling and failed to find it using the as-built data that were furnished. In one instant, we found the circuit located a lateral distance of about 12 feet from where it was shown to be. So obviously we have to be very careful as far as knowing where these cables are going to be placed, and regardless of whether they're going to be below the pilings as they proposed. This is next statement. He says, in 2018, my recommendation called for the relocation route to be shifted to one of several readily achievable alternate routes as noted in my report. And he gave several locations, for example, particularly going south of the visitors dock and going through Vets Park in that direction. In 2023, given the Siting Council has given its approval to the currently planned route, it is now unrealistic to expect any argument will result in the alternate route. As a result, and despite the fact that the transmission cables are proposed to be drilled a distance beneath the visitors dock pilings, I submit that the location of the cables will diminish the perpetuity, the city's control over a vital public resource. More specifically, any work to maintain, modify, or expand the facility anywhere above the presumed location of the new cables, if not precluded, which I expect it may be, certainly will be limited and subject to Eversource's approval, amounting to taking by a private entity of the city's facility, built with taxpayers' funds without compensation. I can imagine the delay and dismay to be encountered should the facility be extensively damaged by a severe storm or unanticipated event, such as you described occurring during Storm Sandy, which we had certainly a devastation at that area. And the city was not able to rebuild the facility in a timely and cost-effective manner due to the presence of the cables beneath the pilings. And that's certainly our main concern. I mean, this, as I said, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but again, they've basically taken over an area that is going to be problematic for, again, future building of what we want to do at any cost. It says, I believe the Harbor Management Commission's recommendations made let's see, made to but not, wait, this is a little awkward sentence, made to but not accept. Oh, but not accepted by the city siding council is reasonable and approved, appropriate with respect to insurance of any DEP permit for the planned Eversource project. That recommendation should specify that any permit issued by the Connecticut DEP for construction of the proposed transmission line relocation route beneath the public boating facilities at the visitors dock must include a binding condition that future actions by the city of Norwalk to maintain, repair, replace, or improve the affected public facilities will not be limited to any significant way by the new location of the transmission lines directly beneath the visitors dock and the boat ramps, and that there should be any added cost or delay associated with such city action as a result of the relocation of transmission lines. Eversource or its successors shall be required to assume the added cost and otherwise compensate the city accordingly. And I think that's probably the only thing that we can perhaps ask for, and that is, if we decide to rebuild this facility, what would the cost be if the transmission lines were not there? And then what would be the cost of the transmission lines in place? Because there's going to be special precaution, and you would need perhaps a special construction company who would want to work in that particular area, knowing that you've got 215 kilovolt high tension wires below that. So you'd probably need experienced excavators or experienced construction workers that would want to work in that area. And that's going to obviously drive up the cost and whatever precautions we would need as safety measures during that construction process. So that would certainly drive up the cost to what the city would have if those lines were not there. So this is something that we have to consider. And it says, to repeat my earlier statement, there's no engineering-based reason that the relocated transmission lines could not have followed another route that would have avoided the boating facility entirely, including a route south of the facility as described in my 2018 report. Doing so would have introduced a new bend or set of bends that might have necessitated an additional splice fault, but it would have left the city's public dock and boating facility thoroughly unencumbered, both permanently and during construction. And that was, again, we were sort of misled by Eversource back when we first started to discuss it with them, indicating that they could not bend the line or adjust the line other than what they were planning to do. That's not the case, because in Greenwich, they have, I think, over 15 bends of these high tension wires in their facility. So having an additional splice fault was not a big deal, but this is a fait accompli now. We know that the Eversource project is going to go underneath the visitors dock, and now we need to figure out what we want to do to sort of help the city, since they did not help themselves during the initial process of reviewing with Eversource. They accepted that project right from the beginning of even going through the visitors dock pilings, and then later on decided that we went underneath the visitors dock project. So I think we need to, I think as far as the commission's concerned, I think we need to work on the city's behalf to make certain conditions that we are not going to be held liable for any additional cost for repair, modifying, or whatever you want to do in that area in the future, and that Eversource would be held accountable, or its successor held accountable for any override or any overcost that would be required to do what we wanted to do. So that's very frustrating as far as what we went through in these past couple of years now. But we need to come up with a and I have no problem with the project moving forward, because it's going to be moving forward. But I think we need a stipulation in there that the city needs to be, Eversource needs to be accountable for any excessive work over and above, since those projects are there, those pilings and those transmission lines are going to be there. It's going to hinder future development, even though they said that all you need to do is call before you dig. No, it's going to require certainly special equipment, special precautions, and added cost to handle what construction is necessary underneath those pilings. Although the lines are going to go probably 12 feet thereabouts below the pilings, we don't know that additional pilings might have to go even deeper, and it might certainly encroach on those in the area of those cables. So we don't know what the future is going to bring. We might need we might even do our own dredging later on. Who knows in the future what would that bring? But I think we have to be prepared to handle anything that we want to do in that area, that we are not going to be hindered or encumbered by by the current location of those cables.
Don, Ken Roberts has his hand raised.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is it appropriate that I'm allowed to speak here?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to get on the record that, I've been working on the project for a few years now and have been involved in the presentations to the commission and the messaging and our position has remained consistent. I just want to say for the record that we take strong objection to the comments made by Mr. Mailman. Can you scroll up to the top, please, for me? No, all the way, please. So, okay, so I suppose it is only Wednesday, the 28th. But have you provided these comments to us, to Eversource yet? Is that your intent ever to provide these to us?
That's going to be our intent. That's correct.
Okay, it would have been nice to get him pre this meeting. I'm just going to put that on the record. And I will also state for the record that, as I stated, our position has not changed. And some of the things that Mr. Mailman has indicated, I just will take strong objection to right now. The Vets Park was a strict off limits from the city of Norwalk. Okay, so you guys have to take that up internally. So that was the direction from the city of Norwalk. The city of Norwalk has not been not taken care of during this arrangement because the city of
taken care of. What are we taking care
of? The city of Norwalk has an agreement with us. It's a use agreement that has significant compensations for the city of Norwalk associated with it. That was negotiated in good faith between all parties. We've been coming here to the commissions in good faith with our plans, and we've been very straightforward. I can tell you that, a directional drill is not akin to a duct bank bend and turn. We have many bends and turns in our duct bank, even in this project. Okay. But when you go under with a directional drill, it's different technologies, and bends aren't easy. They're not impossible. They're not easy. We gave you what we feel is the conservative constraints where we can fit in with our project. We have not misled the commission at all. I take strong objection with that. So and I'll just leave it there, I guess.
Right. But again, has any electric company put underneath a public facility high tension wires?
Public facility.
This gentleman's recommendation that he's never in his 50 years of experience seen such a configuration placed under public facility.
I'm not going to comment on that.
I know you, because you probably don't know, or it's not been in existence. So what I'm doing is
I can tell you that it's not akin. What we're talking about here is not akin to running a high voltage line under someone's basement. I can tell you that emphatically.
Jeff.
Yeah, just to clarify, that we were never talking or never got a recommendation concerning bending the directional drill. The discussions we had back in 2018 talked about angling the directional drill to the south of the visitor's dock and then bending it on line.
Any angling is a bending, Jeff. That's what you do. You have to bend it to get to certain angles. Anytime it's bending when it's going down, it's going to then, so it takes vertical bends when it goes down and then directional bends left, right. So yes, you have been presented with those details.
Well, and at the time, we were also told that you didn't want to angle it to the south of the visitor's dock because that would affect the redevelopment potential of the property at 90 Water Street, and you didn't want to cut across that. And so now, I don't know that it's valuable to well, it's just my opinion to discuss all this details, but the recommendation I think is sound because it's not unlike the recommendation or the condition that the Corps of Engineers and the Siting Council have imposed with respect to the federal channel. In that instance, they would require you to actually relocate the lines if it adversely affected the maintenance of the federal channel. That's not likely, and he didn't object to that. And if it's not likely that we'll be affected by the location of the lines beneath the visitor's dock, then I think the principle of the recommendation holds. If the future of the visitor's dock, which and again, Ken, you know, going back to the reasons for this, the visitor's dock was the idea of the Harbor Commission many years ago. And more recently, the Harbor Commission was responsible for getting over $1 million worth of grants for dredging the area around it, and also for completely replacing the dock. And then multiple other issues, you know, from its inception to recently. So you can understand why the Harbor Commission has a strong interest in this.
Absolutely.
Our thought is that if you feel that it's not going to adversely affect the future maintenance of the dock or the replacement of it, then why would you object to this condition? The other thing that we came up with, and the reason that you know you haven't gotten Mr. Mailman's letter ahead of time, it was emailed, I believe it was yesterday, and we just read it, and it's not on his letterhead because it was an email, and the letterhead in the signed letter will be provided to you. But we also talked about this with Deep recently, and you know this. Deep informed us that they will require you to post a bond if it's necessary to respond to any inadvertent spill of the drilling mud. And we hadn't talked about that, but I'm assuming the city has required you to do the same with respect to any adverse impacts that may be caused to the visitors dock facility during the work. We haven't talked about that, but our thought was to have no objection to this moving ahead to a permit application to Deep, which you've already submitted. We know that you submitted the application after the last commission meeting, and Deep is waiting to review its sufficiency until it gets the comments and the pre-submission consultation form from the Harbor Commission and the Shellfish Commission. But our thought was that forget the comments Mr. Mailman made for now, but the recommendation of absent an agreement to protect the city if it's adversely affected with respect to maintenance of the dock in the future, that this would not be consistent with the harbor management plan. But go ahead and submit it, and we'll continue to review it during the review process. That was our thought, and I don't. Well,
okay.
That's our.
What I would say, Jeff, is I appreciate the Harbor Commission's investment here, and I understand. I'm a fisherman myself. I use the harbor up here in East Lyme where I live. I love my harbor. I love all the facilities associated with it. And so I definitely appreciate the commission's concerns, and we take seriously the commission's concerns, and we want to address the commission's concerns and any requests from the commission. A little bit, I gotta tell you, I'm caught just a little bit off my toes here today. So I can't give you any, yay or nay, but I will certainly take it back. And if you could provide us this and then provide us just a little more, you said it well, Jeff, but I want to make sure that we're all saying the same thing. So if you could kind of articulate in writing what the commission is looking for, I'm sure I can take that back and we can discuss it further, because I don't, in principle, see anything objectionable. And I do think that it's covered in multiple places. So that, like you're saying, so, I'm not privy to all the details right here tonight, but we can certainly take a look at what the commission's request is and see if we can accommodate it. We would definitely take it very seriously and try to see whatever we could do to accommodate it.
Chris?
I'd like to jump here and say, I would, since this is a fait accompli to a large degree, I would like to see what the exclusion zones are. I mean, there isn't a defined easement, with elevations and everything else. So having read the agreement with the city, it isn't because the riverbed is nobody's property. There's another reason. This is
right. There's a lot of.
But what if once you have your as-built for the bores, and where they are, elevation, latitude, longitude, northings and eastings, however you record it, what is the exclusion zone for that for any future construction work?
Well, that's what we would need to know.
Sure. And
Yes,
we
that's why
did.
I'm asking specifically.
Yeah, yeah. And I gotta tell you that we did project those cross sections last time. We aren't prepared tonight to walk all through that again, but there is an exclusion zone and there is, and so how it would work in reality would be that we would get our pipes in, we would get our cables in, the final location will be determined. And then on any future project with the city, we'll work with you to make it happen. We really don't see, we've had experts look at it, construction people and the people doing the directional drill, and no one sees, you have to be careful, but you have to be careful no matter what, right? This is going to be heavy construction. So we don't see, and we definitely would be committed to working with you to ensure that there is no impact to your plans and make sure your plans are laid out such that it wouldn't impact the cables.
And so if that's the case, then I don't see if you don't believe there would be an impact, what would be the issue in having a condition that if there is, and the city is limited, then the cost differential is assumed by the applicant. And
So
then the other thing I'd mention,
yeah,
yes.
yep. Great question, Jeff.
The underwater land is not, it is somebody's property. It's public property. It's part of the
And
public.
so
trust.
here's where I can't make it, I'm not telling you that I'm against or for what you're asking. I'm telling you that we need the commission to articulate in writing exactly what you're looking for. That way I can have it vetted properly. And because what'll happen is I can't, if I say yes now and then, it comes back and I'm sideways with my management saying, oh my goodness, they're saying, Ken, what did you do? And I'll be saying, oh, I'm sorry. So we got to see it in writing, Jeff. I have to have the details. I will get it vetted as quickly as I can to give the commission our feedback.
My thought, and I'm sorry to be talking so much because we've been involved with this for the last 8 years, but right now you're requesting permission, if that's the right word, to move forward with the application process with DEEP. So that regulatory process is going to play out over time. DEEP will review your application to see if it's sufficient. There'll be a notice of a tentative determination at some point to approve. There'll be a provision for a public hearing. So there's going to be a lot more to take place in this regulatory process.
Sure.
Now we thought that what we would do is lay out the basics of our concern, have the application move forward to the review, and then as just like with the Walk Bridge project, there'll be time to work on the specific details. But the concept is what John read, that if the city is limited in its ability to repair or replace or improve the visitor's dock as a result of the location of the electric cables, recognizing that Eversource will work with the city, then the differential in cost for what could be done without the cables and with the cables will be borne by the applicant. And in that regard, it's very similar to the condition having to do with the federal channel.
Sure. There's a lot of, and I appreciate that. So if you write that down, we'll take that away and I'll take that back to management and vet that. I would tell you that there is a lot of assurances already. That's where I know what is going to come of that on our end. We're going to say, we may find that it's covered in other agreements or in permits. And what the risk you're asking for protection against is there. And we may find that. If we find something different, then we'll entertain what you're saying. I don't even know how. So if we were to say that, do you come to the DEP arena in support of us? Does the commissions give us a nice letter that says, we're fully supportive of Eversource's endeavors here?
Well, not at this point, because the policy of the commission is simply to have no objection to it going forward to the application review process. Which I think that the commission, again, not speaking for the vote of the commission, but that the commission, that's the process that the commission follows. because you don't know what's going to happen in the course of the application process. But to have no objection at this time, but to transmit the recommendation for the, I don't want to say a hold harmless, but what John read before, if there are any adverse impacts or additional costs, the applicant would assume those. And then in the course of the regulatory process, if those protections are shown to be already in place, because we're not attaching the condition, we're making a recommendation. It will be up to DEEP to decide how to condition the final permit.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, the financial and that's lawyer talk. I'm not going to go there. I'm an engineer. So my interest is, would we be able to replace the dock in kind? You guys can probably say, oh, we can drill within 30 feet of your pilings without any fear of you know, that nothing's live when you drill. And if you're within 30 feet, fine. But would you let us drill a caisson within 30 feet of your now hot lines? Would we need an outage, which is a six month to 18-month lead time to get it through Pura and the site, you know, and every other and ISO New England in order to get an outage on those lines? Because I know how hard it is, having done railroad work, to get an outage on Eversource.
Difficult to get an outage.
The DOT project I'm on had to rescope because we could not come to an agreement with Eversource and the Darien train station. So I'm well aware of how difficult Eversource is to work with. I'm an engineer. I'm well aware how difficult it is to do work in Connecticut, both sides. So, you know, what is that? And I also know in lieu of a written standard, an engineer will just triple whatever factor of safety they have in their head in order to be extra super triple cautious.
So, you know, Chris, this again just stands in point of what we were talking about. No matter the fact that those high tension wires are underneath those docks, there's need to be special precaution taken. And no matter who undertakes that construction in the near future, which we don't know what we want to have done or could done, is going to limit us in our capacity. Who would, again, to work under that condition is going to require special consideration and special equipment or special knowledge of how to
We
work.
understand that, but if we document what those special conditions are now,
We
they won't
don't
get-
know. We don't
they
know.
won't get,
We
they
don't
won't get,
know that now.
they won't be
We
three
don't
times as
know
onerous
that
in
now,
the
Chris,
future.
because we won't know that now. As I said, all I can say.
That's what he's offering to tell us now, and that's what I'm
Well-
suggesting the commission request from them is the working parameters, offsets, distances. I don't think there's a National Electric, I don't think there's an NEC standard for underground. I don't know. I know this would be 20 feet plus in the air to working within high
Chris,
voltage, but I
Chris,
don't know what the distance is.
If I can take a hypothetical situation, no high tension wires under the dock facility. You have a construction company and say, we want to build XYZ type of arrangement. Go ahead and build it. There's no encumbrances. There's no high tension wires to deal with. Now put high tension wires there. We want to do that same project. What would be the override or the cost in doing that same project with those high tension wires in place? We don't know that in the future.
Well, and I think the lawyer's going to tell you that's what the $50,000 is for.
Oh, come on. That's chump change. Come on.
Well, but the agreement is written, John, and I
But this-
don't think
this-
we're going to get that rewritten. at
I
this-
understand that. I understand that, Chris. But
So
this is what the city is going to be up against. Because
John, I'll stop. I know Steve has his hand up.
Yeah.
But we can't, just like Mark Twain said, you can't make predictions, especially about the future. So all we're talking about is a condition if DEEP chooses to include it. If it's a logical and reasonable condition for DEEP to include, that if the city is responsible for additional costs or there are costs to be incurred to repair, maintain, replace that facility as a result of the cables, the cost differential is the responsibility of Eversource. We don't have to go into the details of the.
right, exactly. I understand that. Jeff.
It's a simple statement that we can work on as the application process continues, but it's a simple statement to protect the city.
Yes, I fully agree. And I'd like to move forward with that.
And Steve has a comment. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just have a point of order if I could. Chairman Dr. Pino, if you could unshare your screen just to facilitate this discussion and gallery view for all of us. Thank you, sir.
It's unshared? Yes. Did you want to say something, Steve?
No, that was it. This is just
Oh.
much better to
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
everyone's pretty face so we can talk.
Okay.
I'll put in my 2 cents. I think this is the city has a fully executed land use agreement for this. The city negotiated in good faith with Eversource, as Ken has said, so that we're kind of chasing this a little bit after the fact.
Yes.
The city did not ask us for our opinion on a lot of these things before the common council voted that this was okey dokey. So we have to
Fully
suck
understand.
that up a little bit.
That's correct. But what I'm
And I
saying,
think we're,
I'm very
and I think that
concerned
I
about
think
those
we're beating a dead
tension wires.
horse kind of
We are,
at
we are.
this point.
It's a fait complete, and I have no problem. Those tension wires are going to go underneath the public facility, which we have to deal with and handle in the future. We have to make people aware of the fact that they're walking on top of a dock that has 215 kilovolt tension wires underneath there. So albeit, what I'm concerned about is future direction. Where do we go from there? And I think that's what we have to contend with. And as I said, I see the logic in Mr. Mailman's email that he sent to us. And I said, this is what we need to perhaps go forward and articulate, as Mr. Roberts had mentioned. You know, we can certainly do that. I have no problem with the project moving forward in its current proposal. But as I said, I think we need to consider some of the considerations that we need to protect the city's interest in the future. Even though the city perhaps didn't do that themselves, because I find it very awkward that high tension wires would have gone between these pilings. It was after several instigations that we called for that to go underneath. So, or on the
But
side.
that's
It's
been
after,
done.
that's been done.
know.
I understand that. But I think.
So I think we need to find a way that we're going to move forward
Yes.
this evening rather
I
than
understand that.
being
I
here
know.
all night,
I
because
understand
we're
perfectly.
kind
But
of beating a dead horse at
But
this point.
I think it's was short-sighted right from the beginning.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but it is what it is. It's we're certainly not asking to renegotiate
Oh,
the
no,
city's
I
land
understand.
use
No,
agreement
we're
with
not.
Eversource.
No, we're
Because
not.
that's not,
But I think
it's not going to happen.
future consideration, I think that there was a
But would not a possible motion to consider is for the commission to have no objection to
yes,
the application going forward to deep for the regulatory review? The
right.
commission reserves its right to continue to provide comments during that process, including during any public hearing,
That was a recommendation.
and to provide the recommendation that a condition should be attached that to the effect of what we just said. If the city is limited in the future because of the location of the cables, and there's an added cost to repair and replace or repair, replace,
Yes.
improve the facility,
the city's
the
facility.
added cost is borne by the owner of the electric lines or its successor. The other thing that we talked about with Deep, and Deep has a significant interest in this because this is a public boating facility, a
That's
public
correct.
access facility that it's duly approved, and it's also listed on the Deep's whatever information on public boating facilities in Long Island Sound. So Deep has an interest in maintaining the viability of it and the ability to maintain it and to enhance it. We're not imposing a condition. We're trying to make we're making a recommendation. It will
Well,
be up to
we were
Deep to
dealt
impose
this
that.
hand of cards, and I think we're just gonna have to deal with the type of cards we were dealt with. And I just feel that
And in the meantime, if we work with Eversource and have communication with Mr. Roberts and others, and we learn that the safeguards are in place, then we could provide additional comments during the application review process. But the process has.
Jeff, what do you mean by
safe?
Jeff, what do you mean by safeguards? Like that nobody gets blown up or?
No,
So, I don't-
I'm just taking them at Mr. Roberts at his words, that they would continue to share information with us, and there may be what we've talked about may be handled in some other agreement that we don't know about with the city.
All right.
But the $50,000 is a minimal amount that would hardly cover, engineering costs to design something that in a location where these cables.
that's correct. Yeah.
I'm
Design.
just feeling right now, we're not moving toward a solution here. We need to decide what our course of action is or
I would like to make a motion that we make a formal request to Eversource for the future restrictions for work under the visitor's dock, specifically if the dock could be replaced in kind. But additionally, any other offset restrictions for drilled piles in the location, in the location, in the footprint of the existing dock.
Well,
In the area, I'm getting a little mixed up with my words, but if there's what the,
I'll send our language around. We've already worked on pretty much what Jeff and I had talked about.
I think the whole thing with deep and compensation is a whole nother can of worms. I don't, and what that future impact will be is a moot point if you don't know what the, if you don't know what the restrictions are. You're gonna find out what the restrictions are later. There's no, I think that would cost more. I think that would cost more in legal fees and probably get thrown out because there's an agreement that the compensation covers all future work explicitly stated already in the agreement. I think that's a losing battle. As the engineer, I want to know what we can do. And if they come back and say, we can't, we couldn't replace the docks in kind, which hurricane damage could require us to do on a very short short-term basis, as opposed to a long-term replacement plan where you have a facility operating until you upgrade it. I think that's I think that's something everybody should know now and not find out in 10 years when the hurricane's already blown through. I want to know that now.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Is that a question?
So it's a motion to request for construction restrictions in the vicinity of the visitors dock, based on their as-built conditions, which will be supplied directly to us.
I have no objection, Eversource. I mean, that crystal clear with you. I want to be crystal clear with you, Chris, that we will continue to share information with you and work with the commission.
And
so that has no,
that's great.
no problem.
Good. And the information up front so that the story doesn't change in 10 years when all the personnel have changed would also be great. So I've made that motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Roberts,
I'll second that.
What?
Okay.
There's a motion seconded on the floor here.
It's been seconded?
Yes.
As what, if I could
Discussion.
like to ask a question, Mr. Roberts. You are an engineer, or what is your background? I'm sorry.
Sure. I am the manager of the project management team for Eversource in Connecticut, and my background is in heavy infrastructure construction, power plants, bridges, roads. But I'm not here representing Eversource as an engineer. Okay. I want to be very clear with that for the record.
My question is, my concern is that what special precautions are necessary for anyone to do any kind of drilling, any kind of maintenance under the conditions that you would require if those high tension wires are under the visitor's dock? Are there special requirements that are needed, special drilling equipment, special precautions? I don't know. That's the question I have.
Okay, and I'm going to answer it very high level with, I am not the engineer. I'm not the one that sets those rules. So, and I don't know them off the top of my head. I will tell you that, as Chris mentioned, there's an exclusion zone where you can't have anything.
Okay.
Okay. So we have to stay out of that, and we can provide you those details. So, but to the specifics of your question, the general answer is yes, there's considerations that have to be made when you're working around high voltage electric lines, wherever they may be, in the air, under the water, under the ground.
Once those restriction zones are been mapped out and located, now could any construction company carry out the work that would be required to be completed?
That's a matter of personal opinion.
Okay, yeah. So in other words, not every construction company would be able to do that. You need, for example, a special equipment or special engineers that would know how to work around that so-called buffer zone. That
not every construction company can do piers and docks and that kind of construction. That's not standard stuff.
So that's what I'm concerned. So the added precautions would be on the, I would say, if I were doing a project, whatever project it is, that I would take the project in the absence of those conduits and in the presence of those conduits. And I take the, what would be the cost if there was no obstruction, no conduit there? And then what are the added costs that are going to be involved if we wanted to do that particular project with the location of those detention wires? I mean, that's my concern. As I said, that's going to be an additional cost, and that's the type of cost that we're trying to hopefully work around, or maybe have an agreement with, that those costs would be met by Eversource or its successor.
Right, John, we're trying to predict the future.
We're not, no, I'm not predicting the future, Jeff. I'm just
Well,
taking a project. The project is whatever project it is. There's going to be added costs
Yes,
in the absence and then in the presence of those high tension wires.
and we don't know what
That's
those
right.
costs will be.
We don't know what those costs are going to be.
We
So
don't know
we're not going to put a
what
dollar
will be.
value to that. We're not
So-
putting a dollar value to that.
All we're doing is making a reasonable recommendation.
That's
And
correct.
basically, the responsibility of the commission is not to Eversource, it's to the public.
That's
The
correct.
public that uses the ramp and that uses the boat launch and ramp.
That's correct.
So all we're saying is, in my opinion, should be to move ahead with the permit application.
Yes, I have
The
no problem
regulatory
with that.
process and our recommendation, for the reasons we talked about, is that there should be a condition.
That's-
We can work out the details later, but it's to have the applicant responsible for any added public costs associated with repairing this public facility. And in that regard, it's no different than the conditions that are imposed by the Corps of Engineers and the Siting Council with respect to the federal channel. It's just simply looking out for the public.
That's-
Sure. So
Of public interest.
let me.
We have a
let me just-
motion that's,
yes.
we're
Motion's
discussing.
on the
right?
floor, and let me just read what's already agreed upon and signed off on by the city and would be legally binding in court. To the city, $50,000 towards engineering and permitting costs for potential future expansion of the Norwalk Visitors Dock. At the city's request, Norwalk will also provide personnel to review, support, and monitor the installation of any upgrades to the docking facility that could present risks to the installation, to the installed electrical transmission cables. Eversource requested any upgrades be installed after Eversource completes its project, and the city consults with Eversource and any such future upgrades during the design on such upgrades. So the motion on the floor and what I'm requesting is that we have the Eversource's restrictions on work in that area, so that any future planning or work can be done with foreknowledge of what is allowed under the existing agreement with the city.
And what if the added cost is $500,000 or $200,000?
The city's, Jeff, the motion's on the floor. Motion to end discussion.
John, you're gonna call a question or?
We have a motion to we'll move forward with the application. And with,
The motion was to request the information, as I believe Chris read.
That was the motion that was made to request that specific engineering information.
all right,
And that's been seconded. We've had discussion.
all right. As I said, I have no issues with that as far as accepting the additional information.
Good.
All right.
Can you call the vote,
All in
Alan?
favor? You want me to call it? All in
Yeah.
favor?
All right. Aye.
Aye.
Uh-oh.
And
We
Um,
lost,
Yeah,
He-
Mike had to go.
Well, he recuses himself on electrical transmission issues. So he's,
But I think he had to leave the meeting as well. I have to say, I'm a little surprised that Eversource would, and like, does our motion require that therefore they have to submit those tests? I would think they would submit those tests anyway on request. It'd be to everybody's benefit to know what the restrictions are on any renovations we wanted to do.
Yeah, we don't have any objection to that. We don't have. any
Yeah,
objection.
exactly. I mean, I don't think we have to, well, maybe, but I don't know that our motion compels them to do that.
well, he's,
Chris, I would think they would
Sure.
do that anyway.
well,
For
he's,
everybody's
We will,
yeah,
we
it-
will, for
well,
sure.
it's, I'm just trying to, Mr. Roberts has made an offer to supply us with information. I'm just trying to get our message, our request clear, because we're coming from two different directions, you know? So
Well, it sounds, I mean, I'm trying to take this all, and I'm neither an engineer nor anything, but so I understand. One is we want to understand what we can do. Chris, that's what I hear you're asking for. What can we do? And then the other is who pays for anything out of the ordinary that we would normally do, you know, but then we have to change the plans to the transmission lines. So that's separate. We know the city's already entered into an agreement to cover $50,000 of that. So I'm not sure what the next step is on that. I agree with Alan. I feel like we're going around and around here, and we need to just make the motion to move the project forward and stay with it and express our concerns. And
The previous
The
motion.
city has
was just-
already put money aside in the toward engineering and future things. And I think what's in the land use agreement that Chris got for us is it's pretty decent support from Eversource for what you could expect. I don't think you can have a corporation, no matter how much money they have, sort of sign on for a blank check kind of thing, that if something happens, we're going to pay for whatever there is. I would never agree to that on Eversource's side. And we also have it's an fully executed land use agreement that covers all of that. And again, we weren't asked about that. Maybe we didn't go to the right meetings, but the city decided that. The city decided they didn't want to have overhead cables going across South Norwalk. They made that conscientious decision. They decided they didn't want that Park all done up. So that's all
Nobody agrees with that. It was the location.
decisions that have been made, you know. So I just don't see why we're trying to
We're not trying
really
to
revisit other than that.
No, we're not trying
or change any of it.
No,
I think
we're
I think Chris's motion is nice to request what the parameters are, that there's going to be an exclusion zone, and they can't know what that is until they know exactly where the cables end up. If you believe what Mr. Mailman said, you know, it's this whole drilling business is kind of imprecise, so you don't know where things end up until they're in there, and so that you can't define all that till the project is done. That's my trying to be fair kind of statement.
You agree with Mr. Millman that we are going to be certainly markedly limited, maybe not limited, we're going to be limited on the type of project.
Yes, I do, absolutely. But
that's what
but the city of Norwalk, the Common Council and the mayor and everyone has signed off on that. That was all negotiated. For some reason, we were not included in that.
But now
discussion.
Now it's based, as far as I'm concerned, on the commission to certainly safeguard the public's property with regard to those visitors, Doc, as our central location for people coming into this harbor. To feel as though that they're safe in that environment, number one, and that in any building or any reconstruction, whatever it is that we want to do in the future, we don't know what it is, that we want to be able to have the flexibility to put whatever facility that we feel is necessary to accommodate boaters coming into this harbor. Now
I don't disagree with you at all.
So again, I think we have to move forward with the project. I agree that the city, as far as I'm concerned, you know, is from my standpoint, and again, this is only my opinion, was very short-sighted and allowing this to go underneath a public facility of that nature, where now that public land is now being we no longer have full access, let me put it that way, to that facility. So we have to we have to deal with the project. All right.
I don't disagree at all, except that the city Department of Public Works evaluated this. They signed off on it. They're the employed city people to do this work, and we may disagree with that, but it's what's happened has happened. It's it's kind of a done thing. And there's already a financial agreement both to improve Elizabeth Street. Is $500,000, I think, for Elizabeth Street, and there's $50,000 for the Harbor Commission.
Fine. Yeah.
I think we have to be sure we have a good communication and good relationship with Eversource post-construction, you know, and they stand by us to help with anything we want to do, so that it's doesn't become impossible.
It's certainly in their best interest to help us with what they want to do. I mean, these are, you know, so I certainly understand that, Alan, you know.
We can all not pay our bill if they don't support us.
I just say that there is precedent for the utility to be committed to an unknown cost. And I use the example of Boston Harbor, which the Eversource people are aware of, that they assumed ownership of a cable and they were responsible for relocating the cable if the Corps wanted to dredge the channel deeper. So that's the same sort of condition that the Corps is going to attach here. It's probably not likely to happen here, but it's still, it's an unknown. And so we're not attaching a condition. We're making a recommendation. It's up to DEEP. If they think it's a reasonable recommendation to protect the future use of an approved public access facility, we're not attaching it. We're recommending that DEEP consider it. That's what
And I think that that falls, you know, under consistency with the harbor plan, because part of what our mission is to encourage water use and water activities, and the city dock, visitors dock, certainly that's the purpose of that, and the expansion of that is something that is called for by our harbor plan. So
anything that would
that's the
anything that would
that's the
interfere
reason.
with the maintenance or the improvement of that would be inconsistent with the harbor management plan.
Right.
So
I mean, that's the language. I think it's very simple. You know, the impediment makes it inconsistent with the harbor management plan.
Yes, and if we were limited, and that's the reason for recommending that DEEP consider that condition.
And basically that's.
Chris, do you agree, Chris?
I'm sorry, I glazed over.
I'm sorry, never mind. Sorry, you're fine. Anyway, I think that we need to move off this because the sun's going down and the fireflies will be out soon. How do we want to wind this up, Lori?
Jeff, can you remind us? I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes. This is a pre-application submission, correct? Can you just remind me what the language is for the motions if we find it? We're not finding no objection. We're finding objection.
Well,
we're finding it inconsistent. Is that the language here with the pre-application? No, that's
I wouldn't say that. For what it's worth, I think that what we've talked about is to have no objection to this moving forward to the application, to the regulatory process and an application to DEEP, even though it's already been submitted to DEEP. But to have no objection to doing that, to reserve the commission's right to continue to review it and provide comments during the regulatory process, including during any public hearing, and we can also provide comments. And our comment would be that we recommend, because the harbor management plan calls for the maintenance and enhancement of the visitors dock and the boating facility, we recommend that DEEP attach a condition that if there's any added cost or impediments to maintaining it as a result of the cable, the presence of the cable, then the applicant should be required to pay the difference in cost. But we have no objection to it moving forward to the regulatory process now.
And that's what, as I said, that was the motion that we would like to bring forward.
I think that's reasonable.
I'll make that motion that Jeff just spoke.
We have another motion on the table. Chris, you want to?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just say it's okay.
But they could be two separate motions.
I think that's right.
No, I thought we voted on Chris's, motion.
Yeah, we voted on it. What's the other motion?
To request
information
on the exclusion zone, such as Chris proposed.
We made that vote.
Yes.
Yes. So this is fine then.
And then now we're talking about the motion that's necessary to move the process forward to the deep regulatory process.
That we have no objection to the project.
Right.
Can I make that vote now?
That motion.
Yes, you may.
I'm sorry. Sorry. May I make that motion now?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Okay, I second that. All right, well, we have one
discussion. Any more discussion? And we have, I'm not sure we can, what we do here.
Yeah, we don't have a quorum.
We don't have a quorum.
But I think,
Jeff?
I think the recusal that doesn't, you can vote without a quorum if someone recuses. I mean, that can be double checked, but you have a.
Did Mike
quorum.
recuse?
The recusal doesn't eliminate the quorum. It's just the recusal from the vote. That's my understanding. If you wish to check that.
Mike was recusing himself from this. He was
That's right.
recusing himself from this conversation.
But he still
Okay.
counts
Because of his
So-
job, because of his work.
Still counts as his presence.
Right.
All right. Well, all those in
All
favor?
right, so we have all in favor.
Aye, aye. Right. Chris?
Aye, I was an aye.
All right. End of discussion, Alan.
Thank you very much, John.
Well-
Brave man.
I mean, this is, well, okay, let's move on.
And thank you
Yes.
for the Eversource. Thank you for the Eversource people too.
Yes, Ken and Ian,
To
appreciate your participation.
Mr. Roberts.
Have a good night, everybody.
Respond.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. I'll be brief here. We have the possibility of going back to the Plan Review Committee meeting separately ahead of the regular Harbor Management Commission meeting. What that would mean is we would have the application review at 6 o'clock, and then perhaps 7 or 7:15 start the full commission meeting. What that would mean is people who are not on the application review would not have to come to the meeting until 7:15. Don't have to decide that now, although I'd like to just get a sense of anybody think that's a good idea or a bad idea. Or we don't care. Lori?
I think it's a great idea. In my brief experience on the commission, I feel that there's so much in that harbor management plan that's not being attended to because we're spending so much of our meetings on the application review process. And I think, I don't know the technical ins and outs of the way that Dr. Pinto does and, others who are much more qualified to deem whether applications are viable and should be processed. I would love to leave that to the experts and allow those of us who are not to push forward with our time on other elements of our other goals that we have for the commission.
Any
That's
other
my
thoughts?
personal opinion.
Chairman Bartos, do you have any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Chairman Kibbe. Yeah, I'd like the option of having them separate. I think I'd likely attend ones that especially include a COP at application review because we do not see those come before our commission. But the opportunity to have them split would certainly work for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen. Anybody else? I think I'll try to negotiate for our next meeting, perhaps to try to just schedule it. Both meetings have to be public. They're both recorded. It's all public information. I just think, as Laurie said, that we move along and not drag, I'm sure drag along, but a lot of people sitting there that are just kind of like
Yes.
enjoying the conversation, but not really, necessarily understanding what's going on. So I will work on that. As you're aware, we have 2 vacant seats on the commission, which is we're close on our quorum call tonight. We have 3 candidates that have presented themselves or been presented or recruited that are really, they're in the mayor's office right now. The mayor's office is a little backed up because the mayor's chief of staff resigned, as you probably know, and that Councilman Tom Livingston has, stepped in on an interim basis to do that. And so there's a process of getting up to speed and just on paper flow and things like that. So we should be moving forward. I'm doing the best I can to see that we get our additional new commissioners seated. I had a conversation with the Louise Washer from the Nowak River Watershed Association. They have gotten a federal grant to do some improvements to the tip of Veterans Park. I know Jeff, if you have worked on the permit for that, or the grant application for that, but she's really asking if we have there's someone, a commissioner in the Harbor Commission who would like to serve as a stakeholder on that committee and the grant project with the Watershed Association. Jeff.
Just might mention, I'm assuming someone from the Shellfish Commission is on that steering committee, because we've been discussing with the Bureau of Aquaculture our own, in conjunction with the Shellfish Commission, our own grant application for enhancement of the shellfish resources in that intertidal, just south of Vets Park. So we haven't developed the scope yet to apply for a grant, but we're working on that. So I think someone from the Shellfish Commission should be on that steering committee. But
No, I agree.
Mr. Bartosh, have anybody reached out to you on that?
They have not. I think only myself and Commissioner Johnson were around when this got started. The other commissioners are new. But yeah, I mean, we'd certainly participate.
Ms. Washer was attending the Norwalk River Watershed Initiative meeting this afternoon, but she didn't mention this. But if you wish me to, to communicate.
No, I'm just looking for somebody a commissioner who might be interested in taking on a little extra assignment. And no, don't have to answer now. Just give me a call and I'll forward your name on to Louise, because they're getting that up and running.
These are all waterward improvements. These aren't improvements in the park. Am I correct?
These are on the edge of the park. Jeff can speak to it. I haven't seen the application.
They're proposing to create wetlands along the edge of the park as a means of advancing resiliency goals. But and maybe there'll be some improvements to the shoreline edge. I don't know, but it's a resiliency described as a resiliency project to enhance the environment or the intertidal area around the park.
Right, so it's intertidal. It's not the recreation area. All right.
No, it's not the recreation area.
Right, that's what I thought. Fine.
But that area has been designated, who was it? Was it NOAA that designated that area as a potential resource for shellfishing?
Yes.
Which is part of the proposal that we were discussing. As when we first met with the group down there to discuss that project, Jeff, I think was there. I think Steve, were you there? And along with Pete Johnson. You were there.
I was.
And
So this involves state agencies as guided by the United States Department of Agriculture.
Yeah.
And the Shellfish Commission's interest is indeed waterward, Chris, changing the grade and essentially making this a new rookery, if you will, such that gametes and shellfish larvae could wash further downstream, as they did earlier in our history.
Joe.
Yeah, just a little bit more information. They have brought on board one of the professors from Sacred Heart University who worked with Jennifer Mattei before her passing, and her specialty is stabilizing the beach and stabilizing the vegetation that grows, as well as putting in the shellfish and giving it a good start. So they had planned on getting out into the mud flats to do that. And I've been asked to be on the oversight committee. And part of that is I had some familiarity with Jennifer and a little bit of shellfish. So moving forward, it's wide open right now as far as getting input. It's a good group of people that are involved with this. And they've even included the Maritime Aquarium in this. And hopefully between all the people concerned, this could be a good project. It all depends though on what the city decides to do. If God knows what their resiliency ideas, are they going to add another 3 or 4 feet to Veterans Park to keep it above sea level? I
It's
don't
not our
think-
discussion tonight.
Yeah,
so
I don't think.
We need to
any one
move
of us-
along.
Yep.
But so the question to you is if, for me, is if someone's interested in, joining that effort, just let me know and I'll send your name along to Louise Washer and she'll, reach out. The group, the Maritime Aquarium is involved with that, the Watershed Association and the Shellfish Commission are all part of this. So it's a great activity. They'd like to have a representative from the commission as a stakeholder in their work. So that's the question. That's enough for me. Any questions for me? Good. Harbor Master Lavallo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start off just welcoming our two new deputy harbor masters, if they're still here. Officer Owen Lee from the Norwalk Police Marine Unit and firefighter Mike Vinci that are on here tonight, and I thank them for participating in tonight's festivities.
Do they know what's in store for them?
I don't know. I think they're still, hopefully they're still on. Oh, yeah.
Both
All
of them.
right. We didn't lose them yet,
No, we're still here.
Big plans for them.
for sure, for sure. Real quick, for this month, we had 6 new moorings installed. There were individuals that were on my waiting list, so that's been completed. The beginning of June, I'm still going after people for payment for their moorings. I sent out 22 notices for non-payment, and as of today, we received 15 payments. And that's still a work in process. I'm sure by the end of the week, I'll get a couple more. Chairman Kibbe and myself, as you, I think, seen some of the emails that we've gone out and mapped. We're starting to map some of the moorings out in the harbor. We pretty much got them all done, and that was because of the DOT map that we got for the potential areas for the barges. So we try to overlay if we're going to have to move some of these moorings in the harbor. We still have Cops Island to do, Sheffield Island, to map out a couple out there. And then, now that we did that, we finished up a lot of the ones in the harbor yesterday. So now, since we have them numbered, I'm going to start matching the owners of the tackle to that mooring, so we know who's where, basically. I've been in touch with Norm Edwards to get going on these transient moorings. We're Alan, the chairman, Alan, Captain Kibbe, is ordering some stencils so we can go out. We could have maybe Owen or Mike can go out and help Norm stencil these transient moorings. And Owen called me today to let me know that the canvas for the Harbor Master boat was finally installed, which is huge. And I power washed the top side of the boat. So that was this month's activities.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. I'd like to just give you a little bit of applause for the work you've done getting back mooring fees paid. And we had a lot of time on the boat together yesterday, and it's pretty amazing how many people have just left their mooring and kept their boat there and just not paid their bill for numbers of years. And Bruce is being really aggressive about collecting those. He doesn't have a club or anything, but in collecting those back fees by not letting them, threatening to pull their mooring if they don't pay up their several years in arrears of permit fees. So that's terrific, and I really appreciate the the good work you're doing at that, Bruce. It's just great.
Yeah.
Any questions for the Harbor Master?
Yes, Bruce, are you in possession of our drone that Greg Scully had?
I am. I actually charged up the batteries yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So it's still operational for us.
oh yeah.
Oh,
You know, I don't know if Owen or Mike want to take part on, you know, learning how to fly it. I'm a boater. I'm not a pilot. But obviously it's just a little bit of practice, or we get someone to do it, to run our drone. That's up to you guys.
That's not an issue. We have a drone program at the agency. I've been in on it. I've been around the drones for a while, and so, you know, we could, if you want me to do that, that's fine.
Now, would that help us? Would that help us secure, let's say, when we get those barges in, to sort of keep tabs of the barge over in the South Anchorage and then also at Green's Ledge?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, also going to help you go and inspect moorings, look for tags. You just fly out there and,
You know,
Yeah. Well, that's with Owen and Mike. That's a huge. We're kind of talking with each other. Once we get a plan, and it's policing. It's old fashioned policing. Does that boat belong on that mooring? And now with coming aboard with DACWA, and not to get off subject with Chairman Kibbe, we're talking, we may have to look into some type of tablet, because now, and I don't know if Amelia's still here, but I thank her so much, because, people, I'm sending these notices out, and for some reason, I don't know why they're not contacting me back through my email, and they contact Amelia, and Amelia contacts me. So it's a lot of hands in the pot, and I appreciate everybody helping out. And, with Mike and Owen, it's going to be a lot of help. Plus with the work of the bridge and the rowers, it's a lot involved.
thanks, Bruce. Before we have Jeff's support, you want to take a 1-2 minute break? I need to take a 1 or 2 minute break, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
Bruce, I was just curious, as far as when those barges go in, and they're in place, are they going to be requiring monitoring, or are they requiring supervision, or how would that work? The movement of those barges in and out of the harbor.
Yeah, it's I think between the Marine unit, the Coast Guard, and our, with Mike or myself, it's going to have to be monitored. Absolutely. I'm really not too much worried about the barges. It's
the boaters.
It's the public. I was out the other day. I tagged a couple of abandoned moorings, and the rowers are 5 deep. They're 5 wide, and you got boat traffic. And I had to go to one of the persons on the skiff and said, "Hey, listen, you got boat traffic here. You got to move over to one side of the harbor or the other." So it's informing the people. It's going to be a lot.
I know, because I'm just sort of concerned as far as maybe it's just from my standpoint, micromanaging. I know that you, Owen, and Mike are going to be in charge of all that, but to work around, again, the logistics basically of overseeing how those barges are going to be manipulating in and out of the harbor, any potential damage you're going to be doing to, like, for example, shellfish beds out in Green's Ledge, the tugs that are going to be using, and just the movement of
the crop wash. Yeah.
It's going to be quite an interesting ordeal that NOAA is going to be facing, in the next 5-6 years.
It's definitely going to be new to me. It's
I got you.
It's going to be interesting.
I wasn't clear.
I think that go ahead, Chris.
I wasn't clear whether we were objecting to, whether we're going to object to any of the locations requested by the DOT, whether we're just going to give them to them. That was never answered for me. They've requested 6 locations. We've never discussed what they're going to be charged. It's all like they're just gonna come in and put them wherever they've asked, and we have to say yes. And not,
No, that's not exactly the case. We have there's a stakeholders group that we meet with, Bruce and I and anybody else anybody from the other city agencies meet every month now, but we've got beginning a good relationship with it's with the DOT team who's on the ground down at Monroe Street, who's doing the day-to-day of all of this. And so we've had, whereas we don't seem to get anything from Bristol, be able to get a lot of information, drawings. We were able to get the
what's Bristol?
barge layouts from those guys for the harbor master who had not yet received the proposed barge layouts. Bruce and I've overlaid those on our newly located moorings. I think the strategy for us is going to be that there's very little incursion in the of moorings where those barge locations are, and I think that it's reasonable to request that one of the barge areas be slightly moved toward the federal channel. There's quite a buffer between the channel and the barge area. And the barge areas they're 150 by 250 feet, and the barge is 50 feet by 125, as I recall.
Yeah.
So we can scoot them over so we don't have so many moorings to move. And I think that it's reasonable for I think it may be 3 moorings that have to be adjusted, that we make that the mooring contractors work, since we know who's doing the contracting, and it's a person who the harbor master has worked with for a long time.
Sure, everybody knows GNC, and we all saw the pictures on Facebook. I overlaid it too, and it interrupts most of the boats that are out there now. Did you plot out the northings and eastings, or you just eyeballing it?
We got the DOT provided us with the lat lawns for all the corners of those buffer areas around the
these guys here. Here's all the working points plotted out by the northings and east, by the latitude and longitudes.
Yeah,
and
let me get you.
Yeah, but I think the map, Alan, that you showed, if I looked at it, probably, Chris, there's probably maybe 4 or 5 moorings, maybe less than that may have been displaced. Not that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal, and I think that let me just, if you stop sharing, I can share.
Well, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 11. I don't know how many of those are occupied now.
Those are the mooring balls. Let me see what
right,
I can.
and those are also the best moorings too. So those are also the best moorings in the harbor. They're also where we want to put our visitors' moorings. So,
So here are the
Yes. Okay. That's right. So that's what I saw, Chris, as far as the displacement, and the sailboats represent the current moorings location.
Current moorings that
would have to
there.
Correct.
Would have to be moved or relocated.
So here, if we could just convince them to move this, there's a good span of distance, move this barge location slightly to the southwest, takes care of that. And then it's really, there's 3 or 4 moorings here that could be adjusted. And frankly, the adjusting of moorings is something that happens in a mooring field all the time when, boats change and things like that. So I'm thinking that we would, rather than try to get compensated by DOT for the work of moving a mooring, that we have the contractor who's placing the barge moorings, relocate our resident moorings for us, and work with the harbor master to do that together in concert with the harbor master and the DOT's contractor, and have the DOT's contractor build the DOT for the moving or adjusting of the moorings.
So
I think that's the cleanest way to do this, rather than try to have to get reimbursed and put a fee on it and all that. We just throw it into the
DOT would be carrying out the compensation basically through that venue.
exactly, through the guy placing the moorings, he's gonna have to move a few of our recreational moorings out of the way. And I don't think that's, I think that's something we could do. And we have a stakeholders meeting coming up next week, and that'll be part of that agenda anyway, to see if we can just convince them to move around a little bit and so on and so forth.
So the
So
DOT
that's
So let me
the
just
plan
ask,
now.
What, instead of moving our customers, why don't we ask the DOT to select a different location?
Well, I think we could do that. I don't know that it's necessary to do that. I think they've
Well-
puts a lot of thought into how they get their moorings, their barges in and out of these locations. They want them to be
accessible, let me put it that way.
accessible from the federal channel, so they're not having to mosey all over the place to get to them. And the idea, I look at it as it's a three-sided parking space that the barge has to come in from the federal channel and sit in the middle of that. So I don't know that it's there's anything to fight about, really. I think it's fairly reasonable, particularly if we can have them move the customers a little bit. They're not moving very far.
Okay, so that's a done deal. What are we charging them?
For the moorings,
Yes,
state limit set at $200. We're
200
capped
bucks.
at $200 a mooring per permit.
And they've requested 7 moorings locations?
There's 3 here. There's a smaller something or other. It's not really a barge, it's a boat tie-up all the way down here
Visitor's dock, yeah, right there.
That's
near the visitor's
4.
dock. That's not a barge. That's, you can see it's half on the
Okay,
land.
it's still a mooring though, so that's 4. And then there's 3 at
And there's
Green's
one
Ledge,
out by
or did I-
Green's Ledge.
There's one of
Not 1 at Green's Ledge, there's 2 or 3
3 barges, 3 moorings.
at Green's Ledge. That's 7.
that represents 3. No, that's one. Is that one?
There's.
That's Green's Ledge.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
Green's Ledge, but I believe if you look at it, there's room in there for, there's 3 balls. They're placing 3.
There's 3 balls. There's 3.
Within that area.
there's-
That's 3
There's
distinct.
there's 3 moorings there that swing 180 degrees or 360 degrees
So.
in
right,
this
so-
location.
Right, so they've requested 7 moorings.
Well, if you count both ends of, there's 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, 9 then.
Yep.
9 moorings,
$1,800.
1,800 bucks. Send them a bill or tell them, figure out how, I don't know if that's.
Well,
Put
The
it in the dock wall, whatever,
the contractor that's installing these moorings has said he was not going to put them in until there are permits. And I think the way that that's going to work is that the contractor will pull the permits from the harbor master and get reimbursed by the DOT. Is how I see that
That's
happening.
their problem. Do they know they need to pay $200? Have they been informed of that? Or do they think
Not
that?
yet. They will be very shortly. They've been told that. But it's not going to happen, these amounts of money by sending letters to Bristol and pounding on your chest. It really is.
What's
It's
Bristol
going to be
allowing?
between the harbor master working with the local people of these kinds of things, I think.
Alan, Chris wants to know what
What's Bristol?
Bristol.
What's that?
ESPN? What's in Bristol?
Isn't that where one of their offices is, the DOT,
Oh, Newington.
Bristol, Connecticut?
No, that's ESPN, Alan. DOT's in Newington.
Oh, I said Bristol.
The contractor will be the mooring. Gary, GNC Marine is no different than Norm Edwards. The contractor is going to take out these commercial moorings. The contractor needs to apply for them to get them, or unless they have Gary be the agent, but still it's the contractor, how the contractor gets and it's a guaranteed maximum price contract. The contractor doesn't get to reimbursed by the state other than they have a lump sum contract. So the contractor has to pay for these, and the contractor needs to be told they have to be paid for these. That's all I'm saying.
I think that conversation has already been going on.
Okay, great.
All right.
Jeff.
And the other aspect of this, and to Chris's point, this is a matter that we've been trying to impress upon DOT and DEEP since the beginning of the permit process. But anyway, another matter is the location of those 3 swing moorings out by Greens Ledge Light, because they're put in and permitted in the opening area, in the open area between shellfish beds. And we asked that that be a condition or a consideration when DEEP was considering the application. My understanding and talking with Mr. Bardish is that the shellfish bed owners would like to have a condition having to do, and the Bureau of Aquaculture agrees, appropriate conditions to again, make DOT responsible, because if for a 5 or 6 year project and with tugs moving those barges around right between shellfish beds, there's the potential for damage to those beds. So that's something that the Bureau of Aquaculture, and I believe maybe Mr. Bardish can say something about it, that the shellfish bed owners are thinking about. And that would have to be addressed in the harbor master's permit as well.
That's a good question. Steve, how would you assess the potential damage that would have been, what would be done? I mean, is there a yield, bushel yield that comes out of that area, that if it doesn't meet that yield in the following year, that there was some sort of damage done to that area? I don't know. How would you do that?
Yeah, so I mean, that's just a function of the beds being covered and what the surface area would be.
So you don't have any means to measure the quality of that oyster bed, or the bed down there, to see whether there's any damage done to that area, and whether that damage had markedly affected the shellfish resource.
No, I think surface area damage would be relatively easy to quantify.
And you quantify that by what? The scouring in the area? How would that be done?
Yeah, by the dredging.
Oh, I see.
They're dredging.
So that if there's let's say a surface area of let's say 1,000 square feet that have been scoured there, that would be significant as far as the impact that it would have on shellfish resource. I don't know how would that be measured? Is that a measurable quantity?
Correct. So I can't speak for the commission, but I will assume that next week there will be discussion of requesting that Harbor Master Lovallo has as a condition that a bond be posted for potential damage to these beds.
Mm.
Are these moorings on an actual bed, or is this in unassigned water?
They're immediately adjacent to state leased beds.
Right.
It's reasonable to expect that prop wash could cause damage. I mean, especially if we had a good southeast blow, they want to overcome the inertia of large barges that they would really have to add quite a bit of power to that vessel to get them to move. And depending on the tide, there would be a plume associated with that.
But again,
Also very shallow right there.
Yeah.
More
I know
time.
Again, a moot point, but how would you assess the extent of damage? What's the benchmark? I'm just looking for a point of information. I know that it's not, maybe not the time to discuss that, but
So Chairman Schnierlein has his hand up.
yes. Joe, you're muted.
Bill, you're muted.
Sorry, you can have any of the shellfish guys go out and do a sample in that area.
Uh-huh.
They can do a before and then they can do an after. And one of the things to caution you about, especially if there's any moorings in our harbor, and I think on one of the charts that you showed, Alan, there was a mooring off of Peach Island or two. Am I correct
Goodbye.
about that?
Yeah.
Okay, if it's around Peach Island, I don't know if any of you ever get in there.
I mean, it's quite there's nothing behind Peach Island. It's off Marvin Beach.
Marvin Beach.
Any of those places during a good low tide they could be on the ground. And
It's all in the federal anchorage. None of it's in the undredged areas.
so they're not going to be off on the side of the channel.
Off the channel, but not out of the anchorage. The
They're
anchorage-
all in our anchorage.
Okay. Okay, then that answers my other question.
So the shellfishing community does have experience with this, especially with respect to the sub-sound cable going from Manresa through the Norwalk Islands to Long Island. And they did experience damage there, but I'm not prepared to talk about the legal issues between the fishermen and the agencies involved.
So Jeff, is that your report?
Oh, negative. I have
No,
one
okay.
report.
We have to let Jeff do his report. We're sort of just meandering here and have we seen enough of this? This is a work in progress. This is just a Google map we overlay some GPX files out of my navigation software to just make all these little marks.
I'll tell you, Alan, that was very helpful to me anyway, to see.
I think they're making an effort here not to create a huge problem for us. And some of these old moorings do show up in on Google Earth. The resolution is really quite remarkable for some of this. Anyway, it's time for Mr. Stedman's report. We could leave this. I'll unshare.
I'll just mention a few things. We talked enough already, but it's interesting that the Department of Justice brought a suit against the town of Greenwich for not complying with the Americans with Disabilities Act because a person complained that the Byram Marina is not handicapped accessible. And so in January, there was an agreement reached between the town of Greenwich and the U.S. attorney, whatever the district is out of New Haven, that Greenwich will make the Byram Marina handicapped accessible. So this is like a new development with respect to marina management. And I asked the consultant for the Veterans Park Marina if they were aware of that, but it might be something to keep in mind, especially since the complaint that was made in Greenwich was resulted in a lawsuit by the Department of Justice. So that's one. I thought that was interesting. I don't know what the status is of the city accepting or providing the paperwork for the street end waterfront access study. That I guess that's in the hands of whomever in the city and is dealing with that. And also there's the need to put that job out to notice for someone to bid on. So I don't know the status of that.
Well, funding hasn't come forward though, has it, Jeff?
No, the money was allocated, but the city is not going to receive an amount of money. They have to provide some paperwork to accept the terms of the grant,
Right.
and then it's essentially a reimbursable grant. So the city would have, the city could, I guess, take the chance of, getting an invoice from a contractor and then requesting the Port Authority to pay it. But more likely the city would want to pay the money and then request the Port Authority reimburse them for the amount.
Right.
I think it's in the neighborhood of $44,000. Some of that we can do ourselves. And then also regarding the SHIP grants, you know what's going on at the state pier and the cost overruns. So the legislature, I guess in this past session, cut back the amount of money that they've authorized the Port Authority to provide to the small harbors. So they had been authorized to spend up to $5 million a year, and that's been cut in half. And there will not be a SHIP grant project or proposal or request for proposals this year. So anyway, so we're not. I don't know what that means for this. For the city was anticipating applying to that grant program for construction funds for the East Norwalk Marina. But that's the end of my report. No, also I participated in a public meeting in another town last week on resilience, the resilience planning. And it wasn't specific to the South Norwalk Resilience Project, but the director of the Yukon Circa program. So what's that? Connecticut Institute of Resilience and Climate Adaptation. Very nice discussion. He made a nice presentation. about the purpose of the resiliency planning. And of course, the purpose is to accelerate recovery in the event of a storm, and to reduce the vulnerability of existing development, and to try to guide development away from at-risk areas. And I guess there's going to be a discussion about the South Norwalk project tomorrow night on I believe that's a Zoom meeting. So that will be interesting.
Well, that's contrary to the thrust that the resiliency program in South Norwalk is doing.
We don't know that, John, but we know we've heard the presentations about the proposed zoning changes, but there's two things going on. And for application review, we should also understand that the time period that we have to comment on the proposed zoning changes. So we don't have that for tonight, but I imagine we should look forward next month to providing comments on the proposed zone changes that we heard last week. We have to be prepared to do that.
Chris, you're on the resiliency committee, aren't you?
Yes.
So thoughts.
Oh,
All right, we need to move along here.
yeah, there's a public meeting. There's a public meeting on that. I think, Jeff, it's tomorrow. Is that
I think it is. I think it is
Resilient South Norwalk?
the
Yeah.
29th. I think it is the 29th, Chris.
Appreciate Chris looking out for that for us. Commissioner Bartosh,
Thank you, Commissioner Kibbe.
Chairman, I'm sorry, I'm confused with the C word at this time. It's C, Commissioner Chairman Bartosh, I'm really apologetic.
Thank you, Chairman Kibbe. So yeah, in the interest of moving it forward quickly, we're over 2 hours in. I just want to say that in our last meeting, we also tabled the Eversource application commentary pending Mr. Mailman's commentary. So I would expect that similar to this commission's discussions tonight, we will have those as well next week. Just interesting to note that Eversource was not in attendance at our meeting. There was no representative from Eversource at Shellfish. So I thought that was important to note to you all. Recreational shell fishing is open. Permits are available at Fisherman's World. Closures can be determined by calling 203-838-9807. Please eat Norwalk shellfish this Independence Day weekend. God bless America, and I yield back, sir.
Can I ask?
Chairman Bartosh, any questions for Stephen?
Senior discounts for clamming license?
We do have a reduced rate for seniors, but we will ask you for your ID.
Thank you.
And what's the age, 95, I thought? Jeff is not with us. He sent me his report, so I'll read that. I've already sent it to Amelia for the record. Jeff Mangel's comments. DACWA is live as of June 23rd, 2023 at $40 a day. So that's available to look at. There are going to be 8 moorings that are available, 4 in the harbor and 4 in Sheffield Island Bay. So we'll have 8 transient moorings. There are more details to be uploaded into DACWA to keep updating the page as we go along, and it's easily corrected and changed and adjusted for what the realities are. The buoys are going to be marked as transient N for north 1 through 4 and south 5 through 8, being in the south in the Sheffield Island Bay, or Sheffield Island Harbor as it's known. Online mooring permit holders. One permit holder is complaining about location. A letter went out to the permit holder who does not have their documentation uploaded. I believe that was solved. Amelia.
That's correct, been corrected.
Yeah. And on the managed fields, he inquired about the second payment being received. He's waiting for a response from the controller's office. I think Chris may have some information on that. All managed fields must submit a list of mooring holders with the Excel form so that these can be imported into online mooring system. The idea is we pay for the online mooring system. If the information from the managed fields is put in the proper format. It's a trivial task to upload it to the online moorings, so we have a record of what all the moorings in the harbor are and who they belong to, and that's really the responsibility of the harbor master to have that information per the harbor management plan. So I think that will be excellent when that we get that information from the managed fields and can get it imported. The other piece of that is that their online moorings lets us locate moorings by latitude and longitude, and they can be displayed on a chart or a map or whatever, which I've been doing in my living room. But once we get that all that information loaded into the online mooring system, we should really have a tremendous flexibility in doing layouts and things like that, and understanding where everything in the harbor is fairly precisely, which would be is a huge step forward. So that's the end of Jeff's report. Mr. Finance, Chris McDonald.
Yes, sir. Did Jeff give us any update on what's happening with the deep audit that we received?
No, he's not. He had not received anything back from the Parks and Rec.
That
at
was
this
all
point.
after the last meeting. I think we should have that in the record. What happened?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So for the record, we were contacted by Deep regarding the moorings that were paid for. What was this program? Was it a ship grant that we received?
It's a
It was a big
BIG
program, wasn't it?
BIG grant, Chris.
Big
The
grant.
big BIG grant, right? It was a BIG grant. The BIG grant is being reissued again this year. It just came out. That's another issue. But my guess is that the feds have told all the states to go audit all the grants that they've made to make sure that that the facilities that were all these municipalities took money to put in place for a period of 20 years, I believe it is, are in fact in place. So they came and asked, where are I forget the number, how many moorings was it? 8, I guess.
I think it's 8
moorings and the dockage for dinghies at the visitors dock. So, hat in hand, we said, excuse us, Mr. Deep, Mr. and Mrs. Deep. We don't have any of that right now. It was when they redid the visitors dock, they eliminated all the dinghy slips, putting the second finger on in the back. The moorings were scooped up by the dredger shortly after they were put in, and we're like, but we're putting more in place. So apparently this is quite common as they went around the state, that everybody forgot they got money that they were supposed to be maintaining infrastructure for 20 years. And they were quite gracious about it. They weren't there to bust our chops, but it didn't sound like this was, that's why my guess is they're getting audited by the feds for all this money, because the money flows from the feds to the states to us. So that's why we are making sure we have 8 active transient moorings. And they're going to want, I think Jeff said, Kate Brown quite recently said, have you gotten that documentation for us yet? And signage. So we're going to have to sign part of the visitors dock for dinghies, the part closest to the shore, where the bigger boats can't get in anyways.
You're talking on South Dock.
The south
dock, right in front
South
of
dock.
right in front of the building.
Right in front of the building. Yeah, better security, better access from there to the transient moorings.
Don't we have our the fireboat is there located the same location, isn't it?
They're out on the outer
It's
thing.
Outside.
Outside. Oh, that's right.
We're
Okay.
talking about the part that basically serves the ramp.
Right. Oh, great.
So in the basically the intertidal zone. I mean, right where the water, that's where a dinghy wants to be anyways. That's fine.
They can't put anything else there.
Can't put anything
So
else
we need to
there.
get,
I think we said 50 linear feet dedicated to dinghies. So fine, I think we can comply with that. But that's all happening. That leads me in, I can cover it under plans and recommendations, but I think at this point, I don't think with the fact that we're only just putting in place 8 moorings with no given track record for demand on those, and we've given over, half of our mooring field to the DOT. I think going for floating docks for transients at this time is probably not within our reach.
I think we should keep planning and researching but I don't know that with the Walk Bridge project, anybody's going to want to be there on a transient basis.
Right. Well,
I mean, it's-
where our transit moorings, our inner one's going to go. They're going to go in that area, right? I mean, in that field.
Probably two. So I'm going to put two probably down by Ishota.
Okay.
Almost kind of like, well, I'm going to try to fit them in between or across from Marine Max.
Right.
Then there's two out by Fitch Point that we have there now,
Yep.
and the rest are all going to go out in Sheffield.
Right. So yeah, I mean, with the DOT crowding up the mooring field, I mean, where we would want to put some floating docks would be in the part closest to the visitor's dock. And yeah, I think we should keep looking into it, but to get an application together without any track record for demand, I think in 2 years' time, we'll know whether, if nobody's taken these moorings, it's going to be hard justifying asking for a bunch of money to put in a floating dock.
Right.
If, and also, so I don't think we're ready to apply under this cycle for that. I think it's a good idea. But I don't think it's a 2-year cycle for these grants. I don't think we're there. So I'm not really willing to put in the effort for practice. But so that's that. That's kind of leaping into plans recommendations. We're technically under treasurer's report, for which I am still wet behind the ears. I got the report from Marianne.
Brianna.
Yeah, and so we got one, I guess it's a refund of $860. We knew that was coming. There was expenditures for Earth Place Harbor. I don't know what that is. Couple expenditures for Telesco, a fee for online mooring of $166. Presumably that's an annual fee or something. We are now, Bruce is a standing charge there. That's all known. We now have 2 interns on board, and there's a payroll for them for 3 weeks. So the burn rate on those 2 interns is about $1,400 a week. And
Should be getting money from the health department for that, to cover part of that.
Yeah, how much are we getting from the health department?
It's been, it's varied. It was $3,000, which is, I believe, $1,500 from Shellfish and $1,500 from Harbor Commission. The year before, it was $5,000, and that was because the health department realized that they had hired more interns, I believe, or done something. So they, without being asked, just goosed up their contribution, and we should pursue
Yeah, and this is
more money from the health department.
Yeah, I want to dig into this a little bit more, because it looks, I don't know why we are the primary, why they're billed to us, and then we get a contribution from, they're working for the health department. I think it's fine, we contribute out of our budget for it. But at this point, they contribute to us. We own all the overrun risk. We're already in for $3,000. We've already been billed for $3,000, and we've only got $1,500 out of it. I don't know how long these interns are on board for. If it's the whole summer, this is going to cost us like $10,000, and I have no idea. And we don't control it. We don't control how many they hire, how long they're working, anything. But we have all the risk.
I don't know how this morphed. We always had, the previous intern program ran through the water quality committee. And we'd hire 2 interns, and those interns would work with Earth Place. Well, actually, they would use a laboratory at Earth Place. And Earth Place would then turn around and submit a bill for auger, for chemicals and laboratory supplies. And then plus we would pay the interns an hourly rate to go out and do water quality sampling at various locations in and around the harbor. But that was, I don't know what they're doing now.
But right now, we're just getting a bill for their payroll.
So the health
Right.
department is controlling where they're sampling, doing water sampling.
They're controlling everything
Yeah,
and we're getting the bill.
yeah. Well, I don't know how that, well, that's not how it was in the past.
Okay. So that, I don't even know who to start talking to, but I guess
Bill, oh, help me,
Bill
in the
Mooney.
health department,
Oh,
Bill Mooney. Bill Mooney in the health department is the guy that manages all that. He's very approachable and very, very
okay.
happy to help.
So the health department hired 2 water quality interns. Joe, you're familiar with, you know about this?
I do not know about it.
I have 2 names
Interesting.
labeled interns.
Right, and it's been going on for the last 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Well, it seemed as though after, I don't know, maybe after Dick Harris left, I know they were working under him for quite some time and then working under Earth Place. You know, and we were funding part of their laboratory along with the Shellfish Commission, you know, when we receive a bill at the end of, after the end of their run for areas that we would map out for them around Norwalk Harbor. And then we would get a bill for autoclaving facility services, filters and things like that the interns would use to do water quality monitoring.
Right. I have no idea. I have no idea where.
Chris,
Where
I'd suggest
overhead
you go
stuff is being
and
charged.
just call Bill Mooney and say, I'm new to this and give me the whole rundown of what goes on, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, nobody has any idea when we started, accepting responsibility for the full payroll.
It was in place, but when I just picked up the paperwork from boy, I'm losing my memory.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Well, Joe and I have talked about this at length, including with the Harbor Watch director. So that the health department pays for testing offshore of the beaches. The other interns, that including interns that the funds that we provide, may not be for work in the harbor. It may be for testing upstream in the Norwalk River. So we've talked about that because historically the commission paid and directed the interns to test the storm drains.
Right.
That program is expanded a little bit with the argument that there's a benefit to the harbor by knowing what's going on upstream. But we've never really clarified, where the tests are being done. So it needs to be looked at again.
Well, I'm not even worried about the scope of work right now. It's who's responsible for paying people. We're not a funded agent. If we get funding for $3,000 and have a $10,000 liability for it, then that's coming out of money, more.
I don't think it's that,
stuff like that.
That's right. And you look at that because that's all. I could, the information I handed over to you, that's in there someplace of what the totals over the last few years have been year over year of our investment. And
But there doesn't seem to be any direction where, what's being, like Jeff pointed out, we used to do beach testing and we used to do testing of effluent, pipes going into the harbor. And
I think at this point, what it's become is us just being not shook down, but just contributing it, but they're running it all through our account. And so Chris is absolutely right that it we'd be happy to give up some money to the health department, but for that, if everybody else is, but maybe we shouldn't be covering having the exposure with the payroll. That's absolutely right. Joe.
Yeah, just to add some clarity, because I was in charge of this for quite a while. And John, I'm going to clarify your memory here. Way back when the initial interns were hired by the guy that invented the midget lures. Remember, he funded that, and I for the life of me, I can't remember his name. But Paul Mahoney, one of the doctors in town, said we could hire 2 interns. And as part of the water,
That was through the Scallon Foundation.
right, as part of that, what happened was the city was being sued, and there was no idea where the sources of the E. coli were coming from. And I had the audacity as a high school teacher to ask 3 questions. Did anybody test downstream from the treatment plant? Did anybody test at the treatment plant? And did anybody test upstream from the treatment plant? Because we don't know what comes into Norwalk from upstream. So that's how that whole thing started. And there's a legacy of data available. And Nikki Spiller is really good at communicating this. And because Jeff raised a lot of concern historically, one of the things I was really upset with is their data is used by Soundwater.
That's correct.
And we get F grades because of their data. And I on more than one occasion asked Nikki, if you see something that is a problem, please let us know
All right. So
ahead of time.
So as treasurer, this is not my issue, the work they're doing. My
Correct.
issue is who hires them and who is responsible for paying them.
I do not know who hires them now, Chris.
Who was the last time you knew who hired them? Who was it?
Health Department, for me.
I think it was the health department.
Well, prior to that, we would hire him, Chris.
Yeah.
The Shellfish, we would interview interns. There were students that were recommended to us who are interested in science and water quality. I think several former students of Joe's were part of that, and they worked very closely with Dick Harris and Earth Place, basically, or Harbor Watch.
So we always paid the intern salaries?
Part of it.
We're part of it, along with the Shellfish Commission.
What part? A base
Hourly rate that they would submit each.
Chris, if the money's always come, in my time doing this, we get the full brunt of their payroll for those 2 interns. We paid all of that went to our account. And at the beginning of the season, we got $3,000 or $5,000 credit to our account to cover that.
From the health.
And if you go back over last year or 2, and that's
Right.
that's what it's been.
So yeah, 'cause I don't know what my question to Bill Mooney should be. This is not being done right. We should not do this. Or is the question, we want to change this because they're not working for us anymore. We're happy to contribute, but we're not going to, we're not going to be the bottom line payroll for this because we have no control over, control over any of the work.
Well,
I think it'd be interesting to be asked the question of why we get the payroll piece. I think that and how that.
Well, if the
how that
answer is we
evolved.
always have, and that's the way it was from the beginning, that's not much of an argument.
no, you're right,
No.
Chris. I agree with it
But
because
we're probably the only group that really had any revenue coming in from the moorings.
Why should the moorings pay for water quality?
I
Mooring is supposed to be for like dredging and stuff.
Chris,
agree with you.
it started out.
So let's what's our argument for not having to be the direct payroll responsibility for these?
Well, it's
We have no control over it right now. We're not controlling.
I want to change the control. What's our argument to change the control?
Well,
Thanks, guys. I'll
we could. I'm happy to talk more with you, Chris.
Yeah.
Just
Yep.
we don't need to take everybody's time with doing this.
Yeah,
How
I
about
just-
what's going on with
Yep.
Amistad?
Everything's a go. I went down to Stanford and met with them. I mean, everybody's really excited about, we're fully funded between the public schools and the Seaport Association they contributed the last amount to bring it up. The school so there's an educational component which is being presented to 8th grade social studies Within the 8th grade social studies curriculum. So 8th graders next fall were in 7th grade. They actually did this. They actually did the in-classroom work for the 7th graders this spring because it's happening so early in the school year. They wanted to get the classroom work in before the kids went to the boat. And there was a bunch of Stanford school kids there when I was there. So, you know, they're coming from New Haven. They'll be in New Haven prior to coming in here. You know, it'll be like the Wednesday or Thursday before the Oyster Festival. They'll get set up. They'll stay through the week after the Oyster Festival. The kids will tour the boat during that week, the Monday through Friday. They'll probably, I don't know if they're leaving Friday or Saturday for their next port, which I think is, it's on Long Island, Greenport maybe. And anyways, they have another protocol the weekend after the, shortly after the Oyster Festival, week after the Oyster Festival. So, you know, I'm talking to them about making sure we have, you know, an evening or two in the week after the Oyster Festival so that there's, you know, a free public viewing time. It's obvious it's going to be available during the Oyster Festival, but obviously that's, you know, part of the, it's within the gates of the Oyster Festival. So it's part of the Oyster Festival ticket. So I really wanted to make sure that was something, the public schools is going to do the public relations aspect. They have a public relations department. So I should follow up with them because they talked about doing, you know, a press release now, just announcing that this is happening to get it in the papers. And then we'll obviously do something, you know, in the week or so beforehand. It'll be publicity for the Seaport Association. It'll be, you know, we might have a small, if the mayor and all want to do a small event, you know, right after they come in and, you know, a welcome handshake, photos for News 12, all that kind of good stuff. Get it in all the papers. We'll probably do that the day or two before the Oyster Festival. So I think that there's a lot of good publicity there. It'll publicize, you know, what the mission of the Amistad and all that too. So yeah, and I need, you know, I have on my list to talk to Gary Wetmore about them supplying the barge that'll be rafted up to the visitors dock. Everything's been squared away with the Coast Guard. It's not an event under their definition, so they'll issue a notice to mariners, and we'll be all good with that. So everything's a go. Everything's great.
So the special,
We're sort of spearheading this, Chris. I think it's great activity
Yeah.
for the city.
special
And
accommodations.
Yeah, John?
Now, what are the special accommodations then, Chris? So a barge is needed as a platform for on and off loading?
Yeah, it's to push the boat into deeper water. So
Oh.
right at the face of the visitors dock, you have like 7-8 feet. This thing draws like 10 or 11.
11 feet, I think.
Yeah, you know, and it's a 20-foot beam, so your keel is even 10 foot off your edge of your beam. So
Yeah, it's going to be right in the slope because we have this slope.
we'll be in the slope, so we'll push it basically so that the keel is at the edge of the federal channel.
What about boarding, you know, on and off?
Yeah, you know, they have they have ramps. So when I was there in Stanford, I mean, they have, you know, they have a ramp to go from the floating dock onto their, they'll need one from the floating dock to the barge and then from the barge onto the boat. And, you know, we have to get some dimensions from Gary. I don't know what to get the freeboard of his barge. So, you know, I'm sure we'll set up some steps and you know, whatever else we need to do to secure the area. So they have a port relations person, they have a navigation person. So that's all being coordinated with them.
any questions for Jeff or Chris? Sorry, Jeff.
Just one for the financial report. I submitted an invoice for 5 months work.
Okay, good. I haven't. Do you submit it to Mary Ann?
I sent it over to you today, Chris. I'm sorry. I sent it over you to and Amelia. I think it wasn't advertised, a chance to advertise put it on the agenda for tonight.
Oh, I see that. It came, yeah, at 3:30 you sent that. I didn't even see that underneath the other emails. Okay, got it. So we'll
have to work on that.
Yep. Okay, yep.
Thanks, Chris. Joe, You keep moving around on my screen here. I can never figure out where you are.
I'm trying to hide. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a very interesting meeting, but a short meeting. And the first thing that cropped up is, and we had a report of red water, which usually indicates red algae. And to give you an idea of what that could signal, it could be just absolutely nothing, or it could be a very deadly algae. And there's a book for those of you new to the water called "And the Waters Turn to Blood." Anybody that reads it, you'll gag at some point. That's all I can say.
They didn't test, that's not saxitoxin, is it? You know,
It's worse. It's worse. What Dick Harris did, and it brought to point something really important for us. Dick Harris collected a sample and he took it up to the Milford lab, and they identified it as Protostomium minimum, which is actually an HAB species. And it's a dinoflagellate, and it is mildly toxic if it's in high enough concentrations. Now, we had menhaden in the harbor. They were not dying from it, so we were good that way. But then my old memory cells started to come back, and I can remember Penny Bloom losing spat that she was culturing. So I called Penny up and I said, "Have you lost any spat, you know, when you're culturing?" And she said, "Well, Joe, no, we sold the business, but Norm has been losing spat." So when they culture this, it's a mildly toxic dinoflagellate that can affect the young larvae of oysters and clams and stuff like that. If it's in a high enough concentration, it will affect fish. Now, what brought my attention to this is I said to Dick, "Do you have a digital microscope?" He said, "No." He said, "What would that do?" I said, "You would just take a photograph of it and send it up to Milford Labs, and they could do the identification." He's there. God bless Dick. He's there. "I didn't know they had such a thing." I said, yeah, they do. And it would be nice if one of the departments in this city had that capacity. Now, they're not cheap microscopes. And John, you're probably more familiar with them because I've been away from microscopes for a while. But they can range from lower thousands of dollars to well over $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. But I'm surprised that we don't have something like that where we could send this off to NOAA and other research facilities to get an identification.
well, I'm not quite certain what you need a microscope for, Joe. All you need is take a water sample and send it up to them. It's their responsibility to view it under a microscope. But most important is to assess the toxin that's released. I mean, I would be concerned.
John, I agree with you, but that means somebody has to get out on the water, take the sample, and then drive it up there. Or rather than just going off the dock, taking a water sample, putting it under the microscope, and they can send them the digital images.
Well,
And
I'm
then
not
if they
sure if
do-
it's a difficult problem to take a water sample and send it up in a vial. The health department should have the capability of doing that.
They
Taking-
don't.
Well, they take water
Really?
samples. They take water samples every day, Joe, you know? How do they bring the water samples back to their own lab to do bacteria testing?
That's what they use Earthplace for now.
All right, well, then to me, it's not a big deal. I mean, to go out and invest in a microscope, that's not what I would concern is,
It's not, you're not talking about bacteria here.
I know you're talking about dinoflagellates and
Yeah, and the health department does not have the expertise to make that identification.
right. So a water sample up to the laboratory with proper facilities, and then test for saxitoxin. That definitely might be a concern, you know, there's several others that are present that are harmful. You can swim in this water. I mean, there's no problem with swimming, not harmful to humans. You don't want to swallow it. But the fact is that, you know, but fish obviously live there. Spat obviously could be a problem, but just send a sample up to the state laboratory. I don't understand what
Well, They took
We
it
don't
up.
need to have this conversation for all of us here. You guys can sort
Correct.
out how to get things to the lab. What else is going on, Joe?
Thank you. And then we discussed with the group what would be happening with Eversource and how they were going to go under the harbor, and the fact that the sitting council had already approved the plan and there was nothing we could do about it. And then under old business, we discussed PFAS and the fact that Wilton Playing Fields project was voted down, so they're not going to put in artificial turf up there. And part of that was the fact that they were going to take money, quite a bit of money, and the mill rate would increase in that town of Wilton just to put in the artificial turf fields. And the voters didn't like that. And
Good.
yeah, and Dick has found that he's being charged by York Labs $295 per test for the PFAS. There is an experimental process out there by Cyclopure that offers a test for $79. And Dick is testing that out to see if they get similar results. And with that, we ended.
Aquarium,
My observation, the PFAS stuff is it's really the public space now, because you've got lawyers advertising that if you ever work with, it's all over television now, with fire, putting out foam, that stuff. And if you have any of these cancers, you better come right to them for money and getting into a class action suit. So this is all mainstream now. I think it kind of gets the word out when the lawyers start advertising for clients. It's
And it actually,
well known.
Alan, actually it got worse because they found out that the firefighters' turnout gear, the gear that they wear in a fire, has the foam already embedded in it. So they could have picked it up just by getting dressed.
it's interesting. Aquarium still continues to test for PFAS and PFOS, Joe. And they do it almost daily because my nephew is involved in doing that. He actually does the water sampling testing, which they have a special. I asked him what is his procedure, and it's a very, very specific procedure that they follow for water sampling, and it's done. He's doing it like they do it every day. Where Wilton Reservoir, they do all the reservoirs that they're associated with. So they're hot on that trail. I don't know how much they send it up to a state lab of some sort.
Thanks for the report, Joe.
Yeah.
Any questions for Joe?
Have a good night.
Thank you. Any new business? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. Second, all in favor?
Hi.
Thank you all.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Alan.
Okay, guys.
I know.
Good night, guys. Appreciate all your
Thank you.
time
Night.
and love. Good night, Amelia.
Good night, Alan. Good night, everyone.
Thanks.